called CinemaCast, home of bombs, bunders, and bullion. I don't feel like redoing it. I'm just whatever. Moving on. Razzie movies that aren't actually that bad. Part 4, Rocky 4. Another coincidence. These last couple episodes have been a bunch of coincidence. Like, episode 13 was a horror episode. Part 4 of this is going to be Rocky 4. So weird. Yeah, that's odd.
Sometimes it just works out like that, I guess.
Yeah, just one of those things. So yeah, Rocky 4 in combination with another Sylvester Stallone film, Rambo: First Blood Part 2, swept the 6th Golden Raspberry Awards in 1985. Start from the bottom here. It won worst musical score, which I don't know. I don't think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't we obviously can't listen to everything that's gone through this, but I don't know. It's just there's a couple bad songs, but I think the music's at least like it's maybe not as fun in 1985, but to modern days, it's just like gloriously 80s. Next up, it got worst original song, which I think this is one of the weaker songs in the movie, so sure, whatever. That is music by Frank Stallone, which is Sylvester's little brother. He does have pre-existing credits, so he's not totally riding his brother's coattails, but I mean, it's just bad. Worst new star was won by Bridget Nielsen, who was in this as Ludmila Drago, who was Ivan Drago's wife in the movie, and also she played Red Sonja in a Red Sonja movie that was out that year.
She also married Sylvester Stallone.
Wait, is she?
She was.
Oh.
I think so, if I can remember correctly.
I'm pulling it up right now. Oh yeah, she was married to him.
For 17 months.
Yeah.
They got divorced.
Yeah, from 85 to 87.
Which 85 was when this came out, so.
It was nominated for Worst Screenplay and lost to Sylvester Stallone's other film, Rambo: First Blood Part 2, which is co-written by him and James Cameron, and is a far worse movie than this. Rambo Part 2 sucks. It is one of my most unpleasant movie watching experiences I've ever had. Because First Blood is like one of my probably like in my list of like top 20 favorite movies. It's maybe in the top 10 to 20, but it's just the downfall from Rambo 1 to Rambo 2 is just excruciatingly painful. It deserves every award that it makes it onto this thing the same year. And James Cameron's also you'd think with the amount of money that James Cameron has made, he would have be some sort of stamp of quality, but I find him terribly inconsistent. Because like he's directed a few good movies, but a lot of crap. Which that was a sign of hope for me when I turned on that DVD a couple of years ago. But that was a more naive time in my life.
In Rambo? Who directed Rambo 1?
I don't know. Off the top of my head.
Huh.
But Rambo 2 is directed fair. By some other guy.
It's really not that.
Rambo 2 is directed by a guy named George Cosmatos, and he just does a terrible job. Speaking of worst directors, George Cosmatos was beat out by Sylvester Stallone, who won worst director, which we'll get into that. That's a bit more of a thing. Talia Shire, who played Adrian, was nominated for worst actress, and Bridget Nielsen won worst actress for the movie. The main girl from Rambo 2 is also nominated. Burt Young, who plays Paulie, is nominated for worst supporting actor. Sylvester Stallone won a two-pronged worst actor Oscar for his roles in this and in First Blood Part 2, which, again, we'll get into that. I'll speak to his... I also think his performance is better in First Blood, too, to be perfectly honest. He emotes a lot more in that movie consistently through that. So I think this performance is actually worse, which is Weird to say, because I actually hate Rambo First Blood far more. And Rambo First Blood Part 2 won Worst Picture, and Rocky 4 got a nomination. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4 worst nominations, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins. So that's the thing. And that's not even the limit of his Stallone's nominations and losses, wins that year. So that's speaking to something. This was a debatably a very bad year for Sylvester Stallone. Rocky Four is kind of has a very enthusiastic fan base, so there's always that.
There's stuff that it did that I don't know if I completely say I agree with. And this is, I guess, the early 80s, so I feel like it's not just Rocky Rocky 4 that's doing it themselves. I don't like it when they take the Soviet era, like Cold War backdrop, and then just use it to justify like America versus Russia type sporting events, right? Because I mean, Canada did it too, or Canada has its own sordid past.
That's a very common thing. There's a bunch of these storylines, and especially when you like, there's only maybe a couple movies about it, but there's a couple movies about it, which is saying something. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
sports fan, you know the storylines there. I mean, I think that movie
Mm-hmm.
Miracles, which is just an adorable movie from a Canadian perspective. It's like, oh yeah, you beat the Russians. Yeah, I'm sure you're very proud of yourself. We do it every year. Oh, that's cute. You think beating the Russians in hockey is an accomplishment. So to get us up to speed, for those of you who haven't seen the earlier Rocky films, in Rocky 1, Rocky lost to a boxer named Apollo Creed and made a name for himself. In Rocky 2, he has a rematch with Apollo Creed and they become friends. Rocky 3, Sylvester Stallone fights Mr. T and wins.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually a very strong series. A lot of people have a lot of soft spots for it. I haven't seen the most recent one, Creed 2, but Creed 1's pretty decent. I enjoyed that quite a bit. And oh boy, there is a difference between like that and this, because it's like they treat you can tell the times have changed because they treat boxing very differently in that movie.
Well, I mean, like back in the day, the two like super big fighting movies that you're fighting, I guess you'd say fighting movies, you could see, or fighting events you could really see was like boxing and wrestling, because UFC wasn't, I don't think, at least a thing of that point in time.
At least not televised. Interesting little transition here, because he takes the guy like Adonis Creed, and Creed takes like half the beating that Rocky takes and doesn't look nearly, and looks like far worse. So it's a very interesting little thing going back to this
Hmm.
era and seeing how they treat it differently.
Well, special effects, I guess, have probably also changed a lot.
It's also a different tone. This is a lot more like, it has its subtle moments, but it's very it's not like Creed, and then it's not kind of cartoony, honestly. It's just like they're kind of,
Hmm. I think the word you're looking for is campy.
yeah, this is a bit more campy. I think a lot of the weird thing about Rocky is like each of the movies is going for a different angle with their story, and it results in like a great series of a lot of very different movies, which is interesting. You can put in a different Rocky movie and see it very you'll be in a very different mood by the end of it.
See, that's a very different take than what I've gotten. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've never watched a single Rocky movie up until this point.
Yeah, no, I've only seen Creed.
So I went in and yeah, I read like every Wikipedia synopsis out there for all the 5 or 6. I don't.
There's
I think there's 5
six with
in
Stallone, yeah,
canon.
six Rocky movies, and then two Creed movies.
Anyways, as I was saying, I just found that a lot of them, and I mean, I'm not gonna rage on this too much because it is just a matter of I'm not gonna say, I guess for the best of words, I'm gonna say the formula of writing a movie like this, it's probably very singular. There's not like a really whole different way of approaching something because it's a sports movie, like, right? So the sports guy is gonna win at the end is justifiably the best way to put it. So
This is a franchise that goes like runs the gambit from like cheesy good to like Academy Award winning for Best Picture good. Like Rocky won Best Picture,
mhm.
and that's saying something. I forget what if Creed won anything. It won Academy Award. Oh yeah, Creed was I think got nominated a little bit, but it won best. The only one that won an Oscar was Stallone for Best Supporting Actor, and that guy who directed that went on to direct Black Panther.
Did he?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's actually an interesting story there. The guy directed Creed. Stallone essentially got all the credit from like the awards. Yeah, they gave him like all the Oscars, and so like this black director and a black leading man, and yeah, and yeah, and he went on to direct Black Panther and like minimize the white participants so that they couldn't possibly deny him any awards clout for that none of it would go to the white guys. Which, to be fair, if you worked hard on your black movie and then the one white guy in the movie gets all the credit, I get it. Anyway, let's get into the plot. The movie opens up with some clips from Rocky 3. We get a little bit of them playing Eye of the Tiger. The opening shot is like these rotating boxing gloves that are like really glossy and metallic. One has the American flag symbol, one has the Soviet Union flag motif on it. And Apollo Creed and Sylvester Stallone are having a sparring match and are just really like, and something I didn't realize that no one really talks about. These two are clearly gay. Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa.
Uh,
Yeah, no, clearly these are yeah.
mm,
The way they look into each other's eyes, the way
I
they
think maybe
chat.
you're reading
Nonsense.
into some undertones when they're two oiled up, like
Yeah,
fully grown men going at it with
yeah, they're going at
in
it.
a set of shorts. I mean,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. That's. I mean, this is clearly some sort of bisexual polyamory going on to the movie. I mean, Adrian's on in on it. She says she loves them both. I'm not judging. This is a beautiful expression of love, Cody. We had a whole conversation about what movie we were going to cover for Pride Month, but it turns out Rocky Four,
I
because these two are clearly banging. Yeah, no, it was just like surprising. I wasn't like I've seen Top Gun and those guys seemed like they were less into each other.
yeah, I don't.
Like Top Gun's more like Top Gun.
Are you sure
Yeah,
about
no,
that?
like Top Gun's more like eye candy. Like they're like the volleyball scene.
I
That's just like
don't think I've actually.
yeah, yeah. But that's Top Gun. I get the impression that it's more eye candy ish. Yeah, it's more like oh yeah, here's this image of this really sexed up dudes, but it's less. I get less of a vibe from that. No, I get more of a vibe from this. They seem to have a lot more of a stronger interaction. Maybe it's that these guys have been on screen together for 3 movies. This is actually the best acting.
Mhm,
Uh, like the first part of the movie is where Sylvester Stallone does the bulk of his acting. About halfway through the movie, he just
mhm.
stops. We'll get into that, but you can like I think it's obvious how detrimental that is to a movie that as you're rising toward the climax, your lead actor is getting like less convincing and less doing less. He just does the same facial expression like 5 times in the latter half of the movie. So they finish their rematch.
Here,
Um,
here. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say this about it. Rocky does seem to have better chemistry with Apollo than he does with his own wife.
Yeah, granted, and like granted, she's not in this movie as much. I don't think she does bad. I think she gets a worse actress nominate, worst supporting actress nomination. I don't think that's terribly necessary. I think she does an okay job. And I never said that they were exclusive. I said this was like some sort of bisexual polyamory.
And also the lady who played Rocky's wife is the auntie to Nicolas Cage.
Hmm. But yeah, anyway, another point to that is they, Adrian and Rocky have already had their romance,
Mhm.
whereas I think Rocky and Apollo's romance is kind of like coming to its conclusion toward the beginning of this movie, or like was coming to its conclusion toward the end of the last one. So yeah, they're at different points in the arc. Like that's the thing about
Mhm.
falling in love multiple times. You fall in love multiple times at different times. It'd be weird if you fall in love with two people at the same time for the exact same intensity, or maybe it's not. I don't know. So yeah, they have their little match. Apollo has been out of the ring for 5 years at this point. After Rocky had dethroned him as world heavyweight champion. So he makes it home. He interacts with his kid a little bit. It's Paulie's birthday, who is Adrian's brother. They are having a birthday party for him that's been held up because he's been sparring with his lover. Sparring with his lover, I should say, with quotes. Anyway, they bring him this. They bought him an evil robot for his birthday. Maybe
Mhm.
not great for the tone. The different interpretations of this I've seen have been talking about how this is supposed to show that Rocky is being decadent, and I don't think it's that he's getting soft, which I don't think so much works in this because this doesn't take place too long after the end of Rocky 3. So he's kind of pretty tall on to the top of his game. Um, so this it kind of undermines the message. Yeah, there's not a lot working here for this. Like later on in the movie, he goes to trade in like the wilderness, and that's supposed to make him stronger. But it's never clear if he's so much if he's yeah. I think that like that interpretation like that
Sorry, I you were just mentioning Polly's robot, and there's a write up here.
oh,
Polly's robot, a character that throughout the years has enjoyed a cult following of its own, was created by International Robotics Inc. in New York City. The robot's initial voice was that of the company's CEO, Robert Dominic. The robot is identified by its engineer as Cisco and is was a member of the Screen Actors Guild. It toured with James Brown in the 1980s, and the robot was written into the movie after it had been used to help treat Stallone's autistic son, Sergey. Sergey? I think that's Sergey. I just thought it was a cool little side note. But I mean, this robot's pretty smart. I mean, it seems to be sentient.
I mean he's not the worst actor in the movie. He didn't get it. The robot didn't get any worst actor nominations. Which, if it has Screen Actors Guild nominations, that means it should be qualify for Razzie nominations if they want it. So it's objectively one of the
Also means that it's unionized.
yeah yeah. So it's one of the
It gets health
yeah
benefits.
yeah. That must drive the
I mean,
insurance company
honestly,
crazy.
I think it was.
Hey, what the fuck is this? Why am I filing a form for a mechanic? It's like, oh, that's yeah, yeah, you're a new guy. You wouldn't have heard about this. There's a robot in the Screen Actors Guild. There's a robot in the Screen Actors Guild. How come no one told me about this? It's like, well, we're telling you now. It's only like one guy. You only have to deal with him like every couple months. Really, it's not too big a deal. It's expensive, but I mean, it's Hollywood. A lot of this stuff is expensive.
Plus, you don't want to get sued. Anyways, what I was saying is, honestly, I think this whole setup with Paulie and this robot is supposed to be some form of comedic relief. To me, it wasn't a great bit.
Yeah, Paulie's
I mean, it had its couple of moments.
Paulie's really Paulie's really bad in this movie. He's just kind of like, why are you here? You're just making dumb jokes. You're just like the fat guy. Is that all? That's all. That's the entire joke. It's like you got a bunch of really fit people here,
Pretty
and they're
much.
like from gyms, and then it's just like, oh yeah, here's one fat guy. It's dumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's his robot for his birthday. Still like Rocky and Adrian are crawling into bed together at the evening. He gives her an early anniversary gift. She hands him a watch. She gets her a really nice watch. Actually, it's like kind of like it's kind of like a snake on almost. It kind of like just wraps around your head. I really want a watch like that. It's really cool.
Eh.
Yeah. Anyway, next after this, we're introduced to Ivan Drago and Lamita Drago. Ivan Drago is the other one of the better actors in the movie, according to the Razzie nominations. He is played by Dolph Lundgren. Yeah, he doesn't do much.
He gets like 5 lines in the whole entire movie. Like, I
They're
mean,
good
he's just
lines.
kind of paid to look menacing.
Yeah, he gets
It
good.
was like, I will crush you.
Yeah, he clearly doesn't speak a lot of English in
If he's
universe.
dead, he's dead.
The one thing he definitely could have used some more characterization. There's room for it. There's a lot of filler in the middle of this movie, but we'll get to that. We're introduced to them. He makes a point of Apollo is in his pool, and he sees Ivan making an announcement that he wants to do some boxing in the United States. They call out Rocky because he's the reigning heavy champion of the world. So he's
Hmm.
got a nickname, the Siberian Express, which is bad. That's a bad nickname. You should just call him like the Siberian Tiger or something. But yeah, he's really menacing in this. He's he's been dominating the Russian amateur boxing scene, and he wants to take on some of the professional boxers in the United States. He is kind of the pet project of the Soviet government at this point. He's like exceeding all other physical attributes, which means he's doping. Because I mean, we see it eventually, but you
Hmm.
know it way earlier on. Because I mean, it's the Russians; they're always doping their Olympic athletes. So after we've introduced him, the son is dancing with the robot while he cleans it, which is weird. He's just like standing on the thing's toes, and they're kind of like spinning around. And he wipes it with a rag. He is asking for Rocky to teach him to fight. Rocky's saying no because it's boxing. It's kind of a rough sport. Shit,
He
is
also
Rocky
gives the
still?
line of, I fight so you don't have to.
So yeah, he's having this interaction. Apollo shows up, and they have a yeah. We get no. We cut after we get this scene where he's singing. Apollo shows up. Then we cut back to Drago, who's demonstrating his power. He's punching beyond thing. We've talked about this a bit. We cut back to the house. Paulie has changed the robot so it has a girl voice, which I mean it's fine. He can date a robot, I suppose.
I have one quip about the scene where Rocky's talking on the phone. Can you guess what it is?
Can't recall.
Okay. I'm gonna point this out to you because I watched this whole scene and I'm like, that was weird. Rocky starts the conversation, right? And he's talking to Apollo, and Apollo's talking to him for like the first 3 seconds when he's like, "Hey, Rocky, it's Apollo," and then Rocky just has the conversation with himself. So for the first 3 seconds, you get both sides of the conversation, and then all of a sudden it cuts off, and you only get half the conversation from Rocky's perspective.
I guess that's I don't know, maybe
Answer that for me.
I don't know. I wasn't on set. Maybe there's an on set explanation for that.
Yeah, like I don't want to nitpick it, but
Yeah, fair enough. Apollo announces to Rocky that he's coming out of retirement, his retirement of 5 years to go fight Drago.
sorry, I was just stating I don't understand the inner workings of boxing at this point anymore.
Yeah, what about it?
Okay, so what I'm saying is I guess maybe the former heavyweight championship title might hold some regard, but can and I mean it is an exhibition match, but it seems to me that only certain people with a certain type of like win-loss ratio can currently challenge
Um,
the title. But this movie just seems to be like, "Oh, I'm coming out of retirement."
I think normally Drago would have had some fights before moving on to Rocky, but I mean, Apollo kind of
Mhm.
goes out and challenges Drago.
Mhm.
That kind of accelerates matters. Um, they
Mhm.
Adrian and Rocky both express concern over a conversation that happens over white wine and fancy glasses, which is a lot better demonstration of the idea that
Mhm.
Rocky's gone soft, I guess. But it's realistically a lot of these uh, popular boxers are rich and live privileged lives. So
I don't fully understand why they're trying to compare this here. And I mean, I guess it kind of comes down to what was happening later on in the film. A lot of the driving motivation between Apollo Creed's character is the fact that he's kind of been this has been, he lost the title to Rocky and he's kind of been living. But everybody's like, he's living soft. He's kind of enjoying his luxury. I don't fault him for that. I mean, if you've got a nice house and a nice car and enough enough money to buy a robot.
and they've started from the bottom and now they're here, like that shitty Drake song. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah, it's kind of weird that they're making this statement. Apollo makes a point that he can't just turn this down. That he's been a bit struggling with retirement, and he needs to go in and do another fight because he's kind of itching for it, and he needs to. He's kind of the opinion that Ivan Drago needs to be prevented from reigning over the American boxing league, or however boxing works in that regard, and that he needs to put down this put this guy in his place before he takes off. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's they have a bit more of this conversation over them watching a video of Rocky taking a pounding from Apollo, and the audience questions whether I'm referring to a sex tape or just like a clip from Rocky One or Two. It is a clip from Rocky One or
I
Two.
feel like you're trying to force this at this point.
That's you can't force it.
Like
It's
you're,
you can't force it. That's going to be painful on one of them.
yeah. Once again, I think at the end of this episode, you're gonna close out of the podcast, close the microphone, flip on your computer, start writing fanfic, publish it.
Fanfic. I gotta edit this podcast in 3 days. I don't have time for that shit. I'm sure I could just look it up online if I really wanted to.
I'm pretty sure there's probably a ball. I don't know how much of a fandom this movie has, but
It's got to be easier than finding that last unicorn fanfic I found, which I didn't really find.
ugh. So you went looking for it.
I mean, the last unicorn Harry Potter fanfic we talked about a while back. Yeah, I found it sort of. Didn't really find it. It was just like
Yeah,
it's just like a Harry Potter fanfic
sent to
with
you.
no, I mean it was just Harry Potter fanfic with unicorns. It wasn't a Harry Potter last unicorn cross fanfic. It was weird. I didn't listen to
Do
it
you
or read it very
constantly
much.
look for Harry Potter fanfics?
No, it was no, it was brought on by that joke in that episode we made with Victoria.
Hmm.
I can't remember what brought it on exactly. Oh yeah, The King Hagrid. That's what it was.
That's fair.
So, yeah, Rocky points out Rocky is continuing to express doubts about Apollo coming out of retirement. Points out that they can't do it like they did before, um, and you can't turn it off. Much like this bit I'm making. We next cut to the weigh-in with Drago's wife, Lamida, Namila. Drago's wife is talking for him because she speaks a bit. She speaks marginally better English than him, which is helpful. She is also like a Olympic swimmer, so fancy little power couple there.
Yeah,
So
but she's also a Russian Olympic swimmer.
yeah, we point out that the Russians are probably doping. So I mean, they've been banned from
Yeah.
several Olympics. People, that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
a fact of this matter. They're having some smack talk, kind of like good natured stuff. Drago's coach, who is a bit more of a scientist, really, who's just building Drago up into a perfect fighting machine by working his muscles in certain ways and whatnot, from what we see. I'm guessing he's more of a kinesiologist than a boxing coach. Just the vibe I get from him.
Mm-hmm.
There is a bit of a Cold War microcosm going in here. They're doing a thing where pointing out that the U.S. gets a lot very boisterous and can't always put it up when they need to, and that the Russians are cold and calculating and do whatever they want to win, and to the detriment of the sport itself. We get, I think, the second actually of our bad freeze frames on Ivan Drago. They just catch him at weird times and insist on keeping it in the movie. Like he gets like these really dumb looking faces. They're not even funny dumb. They're just like bad looking. And they just okay, you freeze the frame on this frame? Like surely you could have held this on for another frame and worked it out better. And this happens pretty much every time they freeze frame on Drago. We then cut to the fight. Rocky is at his Apollo's ringside while he's doing this. Drago shows up. He's getting booed as he walks in. Then Apollo comes up and he is just like making a huge show of this. They do like a he has like a big musical number singing him in with like a live band and stuff. It's a song called "Living in America." It is very tacky on purpose. What Paulo seems to be going for is that he wants to like demonstrate the greatness of America in its fullest and really show off. And it would just be very ironic if he just lost right now and just very unfortunate. It would look very bad for him. Yeah, that was just a thought. No reason I'm having that thought. Just it would be very humiliating. We start the fight. Drago completely dominates the first round. I don't think Apollo even gets a hit in through the entire fight. I tried keeping track of it after I saw that first flurry. The second round starts, and it lasts for a little bit, and then Drago just hits Apollo as hard as he can, and Apollo dies from a punch in the middle of the ring, and he dies in Rocky's arms to the shock of the audience. Died in front of Apollo's wife, which is very wrenching. I'd like to see Apollo's wife a bit more in this movie. She doesn't really do much. I don't think she has a line.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
yeah.
she does. It's not a very big one, but she was talking to what's her face, the Russian lady's wife.
Yeah, I feel like she should have been in this movie more. And here's the thing, every time I say there's more or something in this movie, there is absolutely time for it. And I will get to this in a little bit, but there is
Mm-hmm.
more than enough time in the running time to fit a couple more things in, which may not seem like this because it's already a 90-minute movie, but there was a solid like 15 minutes that does not need to be there. After this fight, this is the first we actually get the as Apollo dies in Rocky's arms. We get the first of Rocky's dull reactions. He's not reacting properly to this, even if we are to assume that he is not lovers
Mhm.
with Apollo Creed. It is like an understated reaction to like one of his best friends dying in his arms, and like they just
Mhm.
I don't know. This is the 80s where men can't cry for any reason, which is, I mean, just sad, really. He just doesn't show enough emotion in this. He just kind of shuts down after this part in the movie. Drago, uh, Drago has a press conference. His coach says something to the effect of science guaranteed the win, and that Apollo should never have gone into the ring. He was too old to have been able to take these punches, and that really any decent boxer would have
Mhm.
accidentally killed him in the same fashion. We're obviously glimpsing from subtext that Drago is doping, so that's bullshit. But uh, yeah, Drago's wife also says that they are going back to Russia because they are afraid for their life, aka they're avoiding prosecution. Because I'm pretty sure, like, there are laws in place that prevent you from getting charged if someone dies in a boxing match against you, because boxing rules.
Mhm.
But I think those go out the window a little bit if they find out you're doping. And
Probably.
so they're probably getting out while the getting's good. Rocky has also taken the opportunity to challenge Drago to a fight in Russia on their turf where they can dope as much as they want. This is a probably a not a wise move. I get his I get where they're going with this. He's he's obvious. I don't mind that they're not going with the that I don't mind that they're not going with the cliche angle for this where he's just like, "Oh, I'm going to kill him back," but it's just kind of like he's just sad and he wants to beat this guy because it's what Apollo would have wanted. We
Mhm.
get a cut of Rocky giving Apollo's eulogy, which is somewhat touching. He didn't. Rocky didn't consult Adrian about this. He has to go to Russia to avenge his boyfriend. After all, it's a he's doing this in a moment passion, obviously. He starts at this point repeating things Apollo had said to them and their earlier conversations, that he can't just turn this fighting he's a he's built for fighting and he can't just turn it off, and that he has to do this for his country and whatnot. They don't quite say that they don't quite break out their line that they're doing this for this country, but which is good. They're just implying it, which is nice. So that's a nice bit of symbolism. And it's why this is better than Rambo First Blood Part 2. Rambo First Blood Part 2 is just the first movie made by idiots. That's all that is. It's just it has no themes that are not present in the first movie that are portrayed better. And this is like approaching different themes from the earlier movies, which is why the Rocky franchise has had such longevity. I think is because they're exploring something different. If not in the same movie, if not, they've explored different things throughout the series. Maybe they repeat themselves occasionally, but it is doing so in a way that's new and different.
Going back on that, I'd like to, yeah, as I said about that earlier, they might be maybe not. They might be using a lot of the same themes and same formula, but not necessarily. Yeah.
There's a reason, like, you'd watch the entire Rocky franchise, but you'd stop watching Rambo after the second one. It's just like, okay, this isn't giving me something new other than more action. which is fine for something like a video game where you have a limited scope of what's going to happen and you just want more content. But for a movie, that doesn't quite work as much. You need to do something a little bit different with your sequels, address different themes, and move on to new things as your characters get better. Otherwise, you're just treading over the same stuff over and over again because you're not simply
Hmm.
going into it for an action. People that like action movies aren't necessarily going to stick with the one action franchise, but they will stick with a character if he tries to evolve. And Rocky has done that fairly well. There have been highs and lows, but it's clearly reached a peak again with Creed. I haven't seen Creed 2, so I can't speak of if that peak continues, but they do bring Drago back for that one. So might be interesting to get a watch on that. But anyway, this is where
Just
the
speaking of
padding. Yep.
just speaking of getting characters back, it was Stallone came in for Rocky Balboa 4 and asked Weathers, Mr. T, and Dolph Lundgren for permission to use footage from their appearances in the early Rocky films. Mr. T and Lundgren both agreed, but Weathers said he wanted an actual part in the movie, but his character was dead in Rocky 4. Which, I mean, I guess
I mean, they're
there's
friends. I'm sure there
reason
was
for it.
other. I'm sure there's other opportunities where you could fit in a flashback or something.
And this caused a falling out between the two of them.
Sad.
But they patched up their differences and agreed to allow footage of him from previous films throughout Creed 2.
But yeah.
So I think you'll
Yeah.
see him more in Creed 2.
Yeah, hopefully. So, yeah, this is the part of the movie where we get into the padding, and it is obnoxious. This is the part of the movie that earns Sylvester Stallone his worst director Razzie, because it is bad.
Mm-hmm.
They play like three full songs. The first one is kind of a clip show of earlier films while he angry drives, and it's just like a 4.5 minute song that gets played. And after he says goodbye to his son, this movie needs subtitles, by the way. It's hard to understand Stallone at times, which is another contribution to his worst actor, Razzie. Adrian's not
Mm-hmm.
coming, which I guess the music gets particularly weak through this, which isn't just another reason to cut one of these montage sequences. They have like three of them in a row. One while he angry drives, one while he goes over,
Mm-hmm.
one I think they do two songs where he trains. He starts training once, then they pause for some character moments, and they do some more training to a different song, and it's just equally boring. And they just Drago does nothing during this whole bit. He just like trains a bunch, and they don't think to put in any character development for him, despite the fact that he has a big character moment at the end of the movie. And speaking
Well,
of
okay, so I mean, I guess they do show him doping in this scene.
yeah, in the second training montage, just to make it clear for everybody.
which which was only really implied earlier that he was doing drugs.
Yeah, like it's something you can guess at because it's something that's happened in real life, but yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
do confirm it, which is something they've been famous for. And not to be fair, it's not like the Americans have never had doping scandals. Look at the Tour
No.
de France; that was a big doping scandal for everybody. So speaking of whether or not not bringing Adrian, they bring Paulie for some fucking reason. Why is Paulie here?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't contribute anything. He brings Paulie and I think Creed's boxing coach, which okay, that makes sense. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that he'd want this, but why is Paulie here? Why don't you bring, I don't know, maybe Apollo's wife and give her some scenes instead of this bad comic relief character that's not
I don't know.
funny? Classic
Moral support.
explosion of female characters. Oh, and Paulie's wearing a "Don't Tread on Me" jacket, which is, I mean, I imagine most of those guys are guys that look like Paulie. So,
I don't get the reference.
oh,
So
it's a NRA thing.
oh
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing they do.
huh.
yeah, this entire middle section of the movie is just like montages and Rocky and like Sylvester Stallone being a bad actor, which is really bad. He just doesn't have any energy in this later part of the movie, which some of it's appropriate, but still, it's just like not. He's not doing any appropriate amount. He has like two serious conversations, one with the boxing coach and one with Adrian, who comes back after the first montage to give him encouragement, and he just has the same facial expression on for both of these. Yeah, he's doing a bunch of return to nature stuff. He's like training in the middle of Siberia. I guess this makes him stronger, though it was never clarified that Rocky was weak. Like Apollo was weak, but Apollo's like
Hmm.
several years older than him and was retired. Like he was honestly his issue was probably hubris more than this being a Turnerian character arc where he has become over civilized and weak, and that's just has it wasn't something that you established with
Hmm.
Rocky. It was just like a okay, this applies to Rocky and Apollo, but that's not proven. He's just beaten Clubber Lang. Not that training montage is
I guess
inappropriate.
there's no real time lapse in there, is there?
Yeah, no. Let me just make sure. I'm
Sorry,
pretty
I'm just.
okay. I think these take place in real time. So when does Rocky 3 happen? So it's 3 years after Rock. I guess it's 3 years after. But still, it doesn't feel like it's. Yeah, they don't really establish that Rocky's getting weaker because he's not retired,
Mhm.
and far as I know, he's still heavyweight champion of the world. They don't show any of his any matches against anyone else, which maybe would have been helpful. But yeah, this just isn't a character moment that's established for Rocky.
No, Balboa's actually in retirement or is planning to retire. I don't
Okay,
know.
so he's in. So he's toward
Yeah,
the end of his
it just says after having reclaimed the world champion. Hmm.
yeah.
But I feel like Apollo Creed was retired much earlier, like
Yeah.
in Rocky 2.
Yeah, I think he was retired after Rock at least in Rocky 3, I think he was. But yeah, it's not stated in the movie outright anyway, so he climbs to the top of the mountain and screams Drago, which okay. And it's just
Yeah, I don't.
yeah, this is a probably like 15 minutes of montages. It's very terrible. And there's another montage left. A good chunk of the climax fight is done through montage, which, yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
you gotta limit this sort of thing. I think they've all had a lot of montages, but this one just like you're not getting enough character stuff in between to match it out. And
Here's
there's
the
not.
thing. I think what they could have done was that they did the first two fights really well. Like the first two rounds were pretty decently done, where it showed kind of the back and forth between Dolph Lundgren or Drago and Rocky. Because the first one, Rocky loses completely outright. I don't think he lands a single punch in on Drago. And then the second one, he gets a pep talk in the corner, and then he comes back with a vengeance.
This could be a 5 round fight, and it'd be fine, I think. But yeah, it's just way
Yeah,
too much.
definitely.
Rocco's been tailed by a bunch of, I guess, KGB guys this entire movie, or this entire time he's been in Russia. He's always getting followed every time he goes on one of his runs, to the extent that it's possible. I mean, they don't follow him up the mountain. And we're finally getting to the fight after listening to 3 whole songs, which, yay. It's
Hmm.
even the ones that are good way out their welcome after the third happens, and they aren't all good. They aren't all Eye of the Tiger. Yeah, it's a very David and Goliathy fight when they get into the thing. This time it's Drago's turn to showboat, and it's kind of a mirror of the fight between Apollo and him, perhaps demonstrating a bit of hypocrisy from our Soviet forces, because they play it calm when they're in front of the Americans, but go onto their home turf and they're just as showboaty, and that those character flaws they claim to
Hmm.
be make them they claim that put them above the Americans are still very much present. There's commentary in this, which is more than I could say of the other film that lost that gave Sylvester Stallone a Razzie this year. Because again, Rambo First Blood Part 2 is trash. It is a shitty movie that does nothing unique and just fuck it. Turn me off the whole franchise. I have no
I've only watched one, and then I've watched four
yeah, I have
or three. Three.
yeah, I have no motivation to watch any of the other ones. It's just more action, I imagine.
I really like three. Like honestly, I'd suggest going through,
Yeah, maybe.
gonna go watch it,
Yeah. I
because
have it. It's lying around.
Rambo goes like Rambo on their ass with like a crossbow, or not a crossbow, just like a bow and arrow. I don't know if he does that in one and two.
No,
So,
Rambo 2 is just like American propaganda and it doesn't do anything particularly interesting. They add the female actress just so they can kill her late in the movie, which I have a pet peeve of. It's just like when
hmm.
you're not including her because you want a love story or including her because you want to give motivation to your male character. You gotta write your female characters right, man. It's just necessary.
Well, if we take that same uh example you just used there, how's that any different than Rocky
Well,
4?
I mean, Rocky has like Adrian has characterization from earlier movies. First of all,
Hmm.
whereas that was just an actress they grabbed for the Rocky 2 so they could kill her within that movie. She didn't have any larger character arc. It wasn't really tragic. When she died, I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, we're killing her now. Yeah, whatever. It's dumb. So, yeah, they finally meet in the ring, and Drago says something to Rocky. He says, I must bury you, which is a very threatening line, but also says
Hmm.
something about what his character arc is supposed to be in this, and that he is doing this purely for his country, and that he doesn't have any particular feelings about this. He's not. He's just doing this because it's what he's good at, and not because he wants to as much. He wants to do it, but he wants to be good at something. I think this is a lot of this is my
Hmm.
speculation because they don't have any characterization anymore, and this is really the crux of this movie. They spend so much time on montages and don't do nearly enough characterization. We don't get any scenes that are just Drago being Drago, and you never hear his side of the story really.
Hmm.
So you're led to like delve
Hmm.
into it and see what you can figure out to try to get some enjoyment out of it. But he doesn't have he's just not allowed any characterization beyond what you see, and that might make the scene a little bit later a lot more impactful. So Drago takes the lead from the beginning. It's a bit mimicking Apollo Creed's fight. Rocky slowly picks up momentum and figures stuff out in the future rounds. In the second round, Rocky's really just tanking Drago's shots with his weird because we pointed out that he's punching beyond human limits
Hmm.
earlier in the movie, and Rocky's just taking this. I'm sure this isn't going to result in any medical problems. Yeah, no, this is. It's weird watching these kind of movies in 2020 when we have like a solid 10 years of understanding of what concussions do to people. They fight past the bell in the second round because they're getting really enthused out of this, and then they have a montage that goes through rounds 3 and through 12. It might have been nice to give Drago some characterization here because this is the last chance they get to do it, which sucks. He does
Hmm.
have some characterization changes, but it just doesn't. Yeah, you just don't get that opportunity. I really hope when I get around to watching Creed 2 that it expands on his character a bit. And I have faith in that. He seems like a good director. By round 12, they're evenly matched. They, in the next pause, they reveal that Rocky has won over a fair share of the crowd. His coach goes in to scold Drago because he wants him to end this quickly and just beat this guy because he is a scientifically superior athlete, and that means he should win. Drago tosses him aside and says, "I fight for me," and then tosses him aside. And that's the climax of his character arc that he realizes he wants to fight for the love of the game. And yeah, we don't really get anything else from him after this. They finish the fight. Rocky manages to overcome Drago and knock him out. Rocky starts giving his winning speech. He delivers something that's maybe a anti-war message that the boxers are that they were just fighting each other because their countries of other people had driven them toward this fight, and not so much that they wanted to be here. And toward the end, through this fight, him and Drago had changed, and he had realized his change, and Drago had changed so that he more appreciated the nature of the sport. A scene after this where he reveals shows him throwing away the syringes might have been nice, and that he more appreciates the sport of boxing would have been interesting. But yeah, he gives his speech. It's like, if he can change, and I can change, and everybody can change. And yeah, he gets a standing ovation from the crowd, including the Soviet premier. And then it occurred to me that this is all taking place around Christmas, and yeah, this is a Christmas movie. So this goes into my. I've been working on a list of just movies set up like sequels that are Christmas movies. So far, I got Iron Man 3. I got like Batman Returns, which is a second movie. Iron Man 3, which is a third movie, and now I got this, which is a fourth movie. Now I need some movie 5, which is a Christmas movie. I don't know. I'll have to look that up eventually.
Good luck with that.
I'll have to like direct my own series of movies so that I can get away with it. So yeah, that's the end of my notes for that.
What about Die Hard?
Is Die Hard 5 a Christmas movie?
Yeah.
Which one is that?
No, Die Hard 1 is a Christmas movie.
Well, yeah, but I need a fifth movie. There's lots of first movies that are Christmas movies.
Yeah, but I mean, arguably, it's about Christmas movies that aren't arguably Christmas movies.
I mean, Die Hard works. I can put it at the beginning of the list, but I could also put something else there. I feel like the fifth slot is more needs to be specific. What was it? I can't think of one right now. Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not really important.
It's really not important.
Yeah. What do you give the movie, Cody?
I don't like sports movies.
Fair enough.
I don't like Sylvester Stallone.
Fair enough.
I'm not a huge fan of boxing.
Fair enough.
So really, this movie doesn't hold much up for me. I've never watched any of the other Rocky movies, so I'm really not going to rate this very high. As a standalone thing, I think I'll give it something like a 3 out of 10.
Do you think it deserves the Razzies?
All 5 of them?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it deserves at least 2 or 3 of them. Definitely. I won't go as far as that. I'm giving the movie a 5. Like, I can't say it's good. I don't think it's got like just enough good in it for me not to put it in the bin. Like, I'd watch it again, I guess, but I can't call it a good movie. So I feel like 5's a good place to put it, because it's just like,
and I mean, arguably, it's still the highest. It's still probably one, or maybe even still the highest technical highest grossing movie or sports movie of all time. I heard The Blind Side overtook it, but it wasn't accounting for any form of inflation rate.
Oh, I'd rather watch this than Blindside, to be fair.
What do you have against The Blind Side?
Well, that's the one where with like what's her name and the homeless guy who she puts up and teaches and like so they can play football.
I mean, kind of, if you want to be like very obtuse about the whole entire plot behind the Blind Side. Like just dumb it down for like the most simplistic of terms.
Yeah, it just didn't have a lot of. It's one thing when it's like a high stakes. This is for the world boxing championship ring battle. It's another thing when like, oh, this is about a college football team.
Okay, I'd like to point out that that movie actually had zero stakes in it at all.
Which one, Blindside or?
No, Rocky 4.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's sports. There's not really any.
Like, I mean, the exhibition match that happened did not count for anything.
I mean,
except for, I mean, I guess bragging rights, and that's kind of, I get, yeah, but I mean, they could have done that. What I'm gonna say is they could have done that without this whole Russia versus America backdrop sort of thing. But I mean, I guess then,
to be fair,
there wouldn't be that speech at the end.
I think if if this would have been like an American boxer doping, you would have been questioning why not he got caught. Whereas this it's a reasonable enough explanation of why he doesn't get caught. But yeah, I give this a 5. I can't really say it's a good movie. It is a bad movie, but I don't hate it. But it is definitely bad. Certainly leagues better than that 1 out of 10 that is Rambo 2.
Arguably, there is a point in saying that overall, the Rocky franchise is probably the most successful franchise we have covered on this so far.
Yeah, that I
think every single movie.
I mean, we did
almost doubled its budget, if not.
I mean, we did accidentally cover Avengers, so I think that's maybe a bit more consistent.
Yeah, that's not canon.
Well, no, it's canon. We just forgot about it. We just did it by accident.
Yes, not canon.
But yeah, I think this is a reasonable franchise to keep around. It has its ups and downs, but it manages to stay around and get a little better as time goes on, and there's a place for it.
I mean, if not, every couple of years when a new movie comes out, it's gonna at least somewhat revive Sylvester Stallone's dying career.
And he does have the they're not like rushing these out, which is always nice. Like there's usually a good couple years between each of them, at least. I think that's all for tonight. So next week we're doing a Pride Month special. A second Pride Month special, I should say. We're doing the 1999 film But I'm a Cheerleader, which is a movie about a cheerleader being a lesbian, or that they think she's a lesbian. I don't know. I've only glanced over the synopsis. I've seen like 20 minutes of it. And then after that, we got a Father's Day special, and then our Canada Day special. And then we're back to regular episodes. You can follow us on Facebook at Kyle and Cody's Called CinemaCast. You can follow us on Twitter at KCCCinemapod. You can circulate the links, give us those 5-star reviews on iTunes, like, comment, subscribe. I don't know.
We are on YouTube now.
But yeah, I guess subscribe to the Kyle and Cody's Cult CinemaCast YouTube account. We put stuff there occasionally. We'll eventually get the podcast uploaded to that. Once we get around to it, it'll be easier, I imagine. But yeah, that's enough for this week. See you guys. Have a nice evening, listeners. See you next week.